Welcome to Mazuma's webinar today, talking about extensions and our tax deadlines, a little bit about penalties and all that. Coming right up to the April 15th deadline, you know, everyone's thinking, well, I may or may not have to extend. What does that mean? Am I going to be penalized or not? So let's talk about it, okay? As we may or may not know, we've got two main deadlines that we've got to abide by. For C corporations and individuals, personal tax returns and C Corp tax returns, the IRS has given us a deadline of April 15th. All right? LLCs and S corporations now have a deadline of March 15th. Okay, and that means you have to file and pay any taxes by those deadlines. All right. Now they've also, of course, provided for extensions. So if you file an extension, either for the business or your personal tax return, you get an extra 6 months to get the numbers together and file your tax return. Okay. So the April 15th deadline becomes October 15th. The March 15th deadline becomes September 15th. Now that's an extension of time to file your tax return. The little tricky part is that it doesn't give you an extension of time to pay your taxes. So technically, you're supposed to figure out what your tax liability is and make the payment by these first dates, no matter what. Now, we all know that doesn't always happen, right? And if you can figure out what your tax liability is going to be, sometimes you might as well just prepare the whole return and get it filed at the same time. So most of the time you don't know exactly what that number is, how much you're going to owe when it comes time for that first deadline. So what are the implications of extending but not being able to pay at the same time? They're small. I'll tell you that right now. We've got two penalties that the IRS applies come these deadlines. If you don't file an extension, and by these dates, the earlier dates, the April date or the March date, then you will have a late filing penalty when you file your tax return. If you don't pay by those dates, you'll have a late payment penalty. Okay? Now, we've simplified them a little bit here, but this is the gist. 5%, if you're filing your personal tax return and you owe the government, they will charge you a 5% penalty of what you owe, of the balance due on the return. They're going to charge you 5% per month for filing late. They're also going to charge you a 0.5% for paying late. Now remember that these percentages are applied to the balance owed. So if you come, late and you did not file an extension and you're filing in June, July, August, and you don't owe anything, no penalty, which is kind of nice. They don't penalize you for filing late on a personal and a C Corp tax return as long as you don't owe anything. Now that's a little bit different for LLCs and S corporations that are the pass-through entities. Because these entities never owe anything in and of themselves, generally speaking, there's no penalties for filing late based on how much you owe. There is just a penalty for filing late. And it's about $200 to $225 a month per taxpayer owner, so per owner of the business. So if you've got an LLC or an S Corp that has two owners, you file a month late, it's going to be $225 times two owners. And those penalties just rack up for every month that you file late. So very critical to file an extension here, no matter whether you owe or not. Only critical that you file an extension for C Corps and individuals if you're probably going to owe taxes or if you're unsure, right? so that you have more time to calculate it. So in this scenario, let's say you file your personal tax return late, but you filed an extension. So you filed an extension before April 15th. That bought you an extra 6 months of time to file. So now you don't have to file the return until October 15th. So boom, as long as you file by October 15th, no late filing penalty. But you get all the numbers together and realize you owe, or let's say you owe $5,000 when it comes time to file your tax return. They're going to charge you 0.5% on that $5,000 that you owe, which happens to be $25. So small price to pay, right, for not having paid by the April 15th deadline. So if you come up to the extension deadline, this April 15th deadline, and aren't sure if you're going to owe taxes or not, file an extension no matter what. Buy yourself that extra time to file your tax return, or else you're going to have a 5% penalty in addition to this 0.5% penalty, which ends up being pretty small if you do end up owing a large amount like $5,000. So there's the gist of our deadlines. Filing an extension really has no negative impact on you unless you owe a ton of money and don't pay at this deadline. And even then, the late payment penalty is pretty small. So go ahead and extend. And don't stress about it. Just do all that you can to get the numbers together as soon as possible and find out how much you owe or are going to get back. And as long as you file that extension, you're going to hardly notice any late penalties. Now, some people have asked me, well, does extending increase my chances of getting audited? And in all the research and statistics that I've looked at, I've never seen any correlation there. There's two trains of thought. The IRS maybe is thinking, well, they're filing an extension because they're such a mess that they don't know they don't know where they're at. So yeah, maybe they are a bigger audit target. The other train of thought is that the IRS says, oh, we appreciate their effort to make sure that everything is, to file an extension so that they have enough time to make sure everything is right. Therefore, they're not an audit target. So no worries about becoming an audit target or raising your likelihood of getting audited when you file an extension. Many people file extensions. Business owner, probably about half the business owners in America, I would estimate, end up filing extensions. Okay, so this is not some small group of people who aren't able to meet these initial deadlines. So you're in good company. Okay, well, I hope that helps you get comfortable with this idea of the deadline coming up and filing an extension. As long as you get that extension filed, then all's well. Good luck out there in small business world, and we'll see you next time.